Oh.
Or that false power.
Oh,
So she's reconnecting now. Yeah, so Riley's not going to do a video or
the 12 is starting to come.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when to start.
Okay. Good evening. Today is Monday, November 16th, 2020. And this is the welcome to the meeting of the Mayfield Community Improvement Corporation. This meeting is being held in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, specific to the recent amendments made light of the current COVID-19 declared emergency, House Bill 197. Under the orders of Governor DeWine and the Directors of Health of Ohio, the Commission will be meeting remotely via electronic means. The public is invited to view the meeting live and can access the meeting through a link posted on Mayfield Village website, www.mayfieldvillage.com. This meeting has been properly noticed to the news media. The proceedings will be conducted in compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. Mrs. Benson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurasek,
Here.
Mr. Marquardt,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mrs. Mills,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Schott,
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
The next order of business is approval of the minutes of October 19th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Marquardt, do you have anything to add to this? John?
To the minutes themselves, no, but there is one item obviously to discuss this evening. I'm ready when you are, Madam President.
Okay. Are there any other questions, please? Roll call, Ms. Bennett.
Mrs. Jurasek,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Schott,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Next order of business is a motion to recommend the authorization of payment to additional Mayfield Village business applicants for small business relief fund grants in the amount of $2,500 per applicant. I need a motion for this, please.
Make a motion to approve that.
I second it.
Is there any discussion? John, do you have anything to say further?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just to clarify, we are requesting an additional 25,000 to replenish the fund. The program would follow the similar parameters as last time, with each applicant eligible for up to 2,500. And folks that have already applied and received funds are not eligible this time around.
Okay. Is there any other questions of?
Do you have 10 more applicants, John, at this time?
Right now, Mr. Myers, I have 3.
Okay.
How many is available? 10, you said? Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Roll call, Ms. Bitson.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Markwart,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Shutt,
Yes.
Mr.
Are
Williams.
there-
Yes.
Motion passed. Is there any other matters? And a motion to adjourn, please.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I second it.
Okay. Roll call, Ms. Bitson.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Markwart,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Shutt,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
This meeting is adjourned now. Thank you very much.
Today is Monday, November 16th, 2020. It is 7:08 PM. Welcome to the regular meeting of council for Mayfield Village, Ohio. This meeting has been duly noticed and is being held in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, specific to the recent amendments made in light of the current COVID-19 declared emergency House Bill 197. Under the orders of Governor DeWine and the Director of Health of Ohio, and pursuant to Ordinance 2020-08, adopted March 16th, 2020, council is meeting remotely via electronic means. Notice of this meeting was sent to the news media on November 13th, 2020. The public was invited to view the meeting live by accessing the meeting through a link posted on the website. The public was also encouraged to view the meeting agenda and offer any comments or questions prior to 6 PM this evening to be read into the record and addressed at the meeting. Comments received in writing or electronically that were not received on time will be read into the record and addressed at the next meeting of council. Mayfield Village is conducting these proceedings in compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. Mrs. Benson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic. Here. Mr. Markwart,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mrs. Mills,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Shutt,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mayor Bodnar,
Here.
Mr. Nguyen,
Here.
Mr. Coyne,
Here.
Mr. Markwart,
Here.
Mr. Morelli.
Here.
All other department heads are viewing this meeting virtually.
Thank you, Mrs. Benson. Please remain seated as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have consideration of minutes from the regular council meeting on October 19th, 2020?
Make a motion to approve as written, please.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Betza, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Markwart,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Shutt.
Yes. May I have a consideration of minutes of the special council meeting, November 2nd, 2020?
I make a motion to approve as written, please.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Betzler, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Markwart,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Next, we have comments from Mayor Bodnar.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to begin with wishing everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. I know that our celebrations are going to be a little bit different this year, but I hope everybody gets a chance to spend some time with friends and family, even if it's just by phone or by Zoom or FaceTime or Skype. I hope everybody has the opportunity to enjoy some time with each other. Also want to give a brief COVID update. First of all, we're awaiting further orders from Governor DeWine. He did give us a fatherly fireside chat last week, and he has issued a few more restrictions. But some say that he was firing a warning shot. So he hasn't issued any closures yet. We will be following to see if anything is happening this week. We are also waiting for the Ohio legislature to act in order to allow us to continue with remote meetings for a while. The current legislation's effective date, I think, ends December 1st. So I am told they may act this week, but we never know for sure. And finally, from a village standpoint, we have met with all the department heads. And to the extent it is possible, we are moving back to a work at home model. To the extent that we can still get our work done, that's what we're going to be doing. So that's all I have for those reports. Is Mr. DeBadges here with us tonight?
Yes, I am, Your Honor. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, but oh, there you are. Okay, I
Okay.
just wanted to see you also. Okay, so I believe, Council President, you're going to begin with the motion.
Yes. We have a motion to approve selection of Henry F. DeBagus to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the term ending December 31st, 2023.
Make a motion to approve this motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, I would just like to say that Henry already serves us very well as chairman of our Civil Service Commission. And Henry, I am very grateful to you for also taking on this additional responsibility to serve on our Planning and Zoning Commission. So appreciate that very much. You have given wonderful service to Mayfield Village, and we are very grateful to have you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the appointment.
Any other comments? Mrs. Betzler, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Markwart,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Scheck.
Yes.
So Henry, this is the first remote oath of office I have administered.
Okay.
If you would raise your right hand and please repeat after me. I, Henry DeBadges,
I, Henry DeBadges,
hereby solemnly swear
hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and statutes
that I will support the Constitution and statutes
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and statutes
the Constitution and statutes
of the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of Mayfield Village, Ohio,
of Mayfield Village, Ohio.
in my position
In my position
as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission,
as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
for so long as I hold such position,
for so long as I hold such position,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Henry, and welcome aboard. You know that you are taking the position of Jim Farmer, who has resigned, and you have big shoes to fill, but I have no
Well,
no doubt that you can do the job well. And I also want to offer my thanks to Jim for all of the great service he has given us from Mayfield Village. Henry, I think Mary Beth will work with you to get you some paperwork to sign,
okay.
and you are ready to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thanks.
That's
Thank
all
you.
I had, Council President.
Thank you. Next, we have condolences for Councilwoman Jen Jurasek on the passing of her father-in-law, Al Jurasek. From my understanding, Al is a family man and was very much respected throughout the Mayfield community. So please keep Jen, her husband John, and the rest of their family in your thoughts and prayers through this difficult time.
Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Sorry again for your loss. I just want to give a shout out to our Economic Development Manager, John Marquardt. We've received several emails and letters from the small businesses throughout Mayfield Village on the Small Business Relief Fund program that he has spearheaded. So thank you very much, John, for taking care of that and providing the grants and necessary funds for these small businesses. It just goes to show, you know, what we have at Mayfield Village and helping each other out in times of need, that we were able to have the funds available to help out these small businesses. So thank you, John, for spearheading this effort. And thank you for council for being supportive, Mayor as well, for everybody's help on this effort, but specifically to Mr. John Marquardt. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you all for your support as well.
Absolutely. And also another shout out to Mayfield City Schools Superintendent Dr. Keith Kelly on his retirement effective August 1st, 2020. I know Dr. Kelly is not present for our meeting, but we still wanted to acknowledge him. Mayfield Village, we have a strong relationship with the Mayfield City Schools. I'm sure the school board will do an excellent job replacing Dr. Kelly. So we look forward to continuing our great relationship with Mayfield Village and the Mayfield City Schools. The December caucus is scheduled for Monday, December 7th. The next regularly scheduled meeting for council is Monday, December 21st. At this time, we are not sure whether or not Governor DeWine will extend his emergency order as it relates to virtual as opposed to in-person meetings. I'm assuming that he will. However, please check the website for additional updates. They will be posted as soon as we have them. Also, keep in mind the 2020 Mayfield Village Holiday Decorating Contest. Register your house or business by November 20th by calling the Recreation Department. All houses and businesses must be decorated by 5 o'clock on December 11th. There are 6 great categories and prizes, so be sure to register. And as Mayor Bodnar touched on earlier, happy Thanksgiving to all next Thursday. Please be safe and smart. As we know, unfortunately, the COVID cases have been increasing. Although, you know, people want to spend some time with family and friends, virtual may be the best way just to help combat the cases with the COVID increasing. That's all I have at this time. Next on to the open portion, the public comment, Mrs. Betza.
Yes, Council President, I received a letter dated November 2nd via electronic and hand delivery addressed to me, requesting that I read this into the record. The letter comes from Ron DiNardo, Chairman of the Petitioner Committee requiring term limits for all Mayfield Village elected officials. And it's regarding submitted charter amendment initiative petitions proposing an ordinance adding term limits for council members and the office of mayor. The letter reads as follows. Dear Mayfield Village Clerk of Council and council members, per the Mayfield Village Charter, Article 7, Section 1, electors shall have the power to propose any ordinance or resolution, except an ordinance appropriating money or authorizing the levy of taxes, and to adopt or reject the same at the polls, such power being known as the initiative. An initiated ordinance or resolution shall be submitted to council by a petition signed in ink by qualified electors equal in number to at least 10% of the total vote cast at the last regular municipal election, which petition shall be filed with the clerk of council. Within 20 days after any such petition has been filed, the clerk of council shall determine the sufficiency of the petition. The petition as of 10/26/20 has been certified sufficient by the clerk of council and the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Council shall take final action, either enacting, amending, or rejecting the proposed ordinance or resolution within 40 days after it has been certified sufficient by the clerk of council. If within such 40 days, council fails to pass such proposed ordinance or resolution, or passes it in some form different from that set forth in the petition therefore, the petitioners, through the committee named on such petition may, at the next regular meeting of council, request in writing that it be submitted to a vote of the electors. Thereupon, council shall provide for submitting the petition, ordinance, or resolution to the electors at the next general election. Since the effective date of Mayfield Village's charter, 1/1/1975, term limit language for the office of mayor and council members had always been included language in the charter. In 2004, a charter amendment initiative petition ordinance was proposed, eliminating term limit language for the office of mayor and council members, and presented to council. Council approved the proposed initiative petition as submitted without changes, allowing the people to decide at the ballot box if this change should occur. This was known as issue 52 and 53 on the ballot. All ballot language must be presented to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections for review and approval prior to placing on the ballot, thus protecting electors from any erroneous ballot language. This charter amendment initiative petition's language is clear and not misleading to the electors. The consensus of the enclosed 100+ signatures overwhelmingly supports the ballot language submitted in this bipartisan initiative. Rejecting the charter amendment initiative petition ordinances as proposed will clearly show bias and motivation on council's end to take away the right for electors to decide for themselves when voting on these issues. At this time, the petitioner committee, requiring term limits for all Mayfield Village elected officials, requests council to approve the proposed charter amendment initiative petition ordinances, adding term limits for council members and the office of mayor as submitted. The committee will not accept amended language to the charter amendment initiative petition ordinance language as submitted. This letter will serve as our formal request to submit the charter amendment initiative petition ordinance language to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections to be processed and placed on the ballot for the electors of Mayfield Village to vote at the November 2nd, 2021 general election. Subsequently, Mr. DiNardo sent me an email dated November 11th, 2020. Mary Beth, I reviewed the minutes from the council caucus meeting November 2nd, 2020, and noticed my letter addressed to you, sent electronically and hand-delivered to the Civic Center on 11/2/2020, was not read into the minutes. I presume my letter will be read into the minutes at the November 16th council meeting under the open portion, correct? I want to be clear, our committee has requested this charter amendment initiative petition be submitted to a vote of the electors as proposed without change and occur at the next general election being Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. We recognize that we do not meet the requirement for a special election as stated below in the Mayfield Village Charter Article 7, Section 1, and there is no need for our community to spend $9,200 when this money can go towards senior services, police, or fire needs.
Thank you, Mrs. Betza.
I'll just note, I'll be glad to address some of those comments during my law director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. We'll move along onto the department head reports. First up is Finance Department, Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, no report this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Mr. Coyne, Law Department.
This evening, you will have two items on the agenda for consideration: Ordinance 2020-31 and Ordinance 2020-32. They're somewhat responsive to the communications we received from the chairman of the petitioner committee for the term limits that are being requested. And I wanted to, again, just remind council about the procedures that have been followed to date. First of all, the initiative petitions were submitted to the council clerk on or about October the 6th, 2020. Pursuant to Article 3, Section 1 of our charter, upon the submission of said petitions, they're reviewed by the council clerk. Clerk confers with the law department, and we also confer with the Board of Elections. The council clerk has 20 days to evaluate the sufficiency of the petitions and to submit them to the village council. The village council has 40 days in which to act on said petitions. In so doing, the council is to consider the amendments of the petitions, and it's important that you keep in mind the amendments are to the charter, not to amend a resolution, not to amend an ordinance. So they're submitted to the electors at the next regular municipal election, if one shall occur not less than 60 days, not more than 120 days. If there is no such election, the submission of the question shall occur at a special election to be held within the aforesaid time period. Now, this time period is mandated by the Ohio Constitution, but unfortunately, the Petitioners Committee did not look at Article 10 of our charter, which also states that amendments to the charter must comply with the Ohio Constitution. Article 18, Section 9 and 8 both require that the election be held within 120 days, but not sooner than 60 days from the date of submission. As a consequence, the ordinance that is before you, if you consider sending it along to the Board of Elections, complies with the charter, complies with the Ohio Constitution, and is appropriate. Given the time we're in, I might add, the date of a special election can be determined by council. However, it is in the middle of a pandemic. It will likely take place if it's passed on to the Board of Elections during the winter time, and it's council's determination as to the date. The current ordinance reflects that the date would be set for March the 16th of 2021. Having said that, council has the discretion to consider the ordinance, consider another date. Council also can take action, but no later than December the 5th of 2020. So if action is not taken tonight, it would be likely that council would have to convene a special meeting to take further action. I'd be glad to answer any questions on this matter now or when they come up for introduction.
I have a question. What is the next election date?
I believe the next election date is in May. There is an election in November. I don't know that the village has an election date in May. There is one in November for sure. And there are some other special elections in Cuyahoga County and other communities.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Coyne?
Yes. I was not
Councilor
clear.
Williams?
I was not clear on your point that the committee did not read a particular section in the Ohio Constitution. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, well, what they didn't review or include in their request is the provisions of not only the Ohio Constitution, but Article 10 of the Charter of the Village. So the provisions related to the council clerk's review of the submitted petitions, and then the time frame for which, after they've been passed on to council, the 40-day period, that's all contained within the charter in Article 3, Section 1. And actually, the chairman includes a copy of Article 3, Section 7, Article 3, Section 7, Section 3, Article 7. And it states in the first sentence that it governs initiatives, referendums, and recalls for ordinances or resolutions. And that's the procedure that's provided. Now, Article 10 is specific to amendments to the charter, which is different from an ordinance or a resolution. Article 10 of the charter of the village clearly states that the provisions of the Ohio Constitution need to be followed. In the Ohio Constitution, the two sections I cited, Article 18, 8, and 9, specifically provide for how to amend charters in communities. So that's the section that he omitted in his letter and did not take into consideration. I'm only calling balls and strikes like an umpire. At the end of the day, that's what's required. And so that's how it should be followed, should council refer it to the Board of Elections. So the council has to act no later than December the 5th, and it shall be in ordinance form submitted to the Board of Elections consistent with what was presented. So what was presented by the petitioners is what's reflected in the proposed ordinances, the two ordinances, 31 and 32. However, given the time frame by which the petitioners committee submitted the ordinances, or submitted the petitions, I should say, it has to be submitted to the electors consistent with the Ohio Constitution as required by our charter and the Constitution.
Thank you.
Tony?
Yes.
And so that has to be within 120 days, no matter, so we're looking at no matter the timing, even if we act upon it on December 5th, that this would have to be a special election due to the timing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we would have to incur that extra cost no matter what in order to comply.
If the elections to proceed, yes. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Coyne? Thank you, Mr. Coyne.
Welcome.
Next is the in-committee status reports. We have the Volunteer Firefighters Dependents Fund Board. Council received a memorandum relative to the need to designate 2 members of the legislative authority to serve on the board. Are there any questions? At this time, I ask for a motion to designate Councilwoman Mills and Councilman Marquardt to serve as the Volunteer Firefighters Dependent Fund Board to December 31st, 2021.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? As mentioned above, we have the need to have 2 legislative members to serve. Both Councilwoman Mills and Councilman Marquardt have served in the past and have done a great job. So we'd like to keep in good efforts with this committee moving forward. So thank you, Councilwoman Mills and Councilman Marquardt. If there's no other discussion, Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Motion carries. On the old business, we have the second reading of ordinance number 2020-23 entitled
An ordinance enacting Mayfield Village Codified Ordinance, Section 903.05, Sidewalk Repair Reimbursement.
ordinance number 2020-23 will move to third read in December. Second reading of ordinance number 2020-24 entitled
An ordinance enacting Mayfield Village Codified Ordinance, Section 1157.10, Patios Permit Fee.
ordinance number 2020-24 will move to third read for December's meeting. Second reading of ordinance number 2020-26 entitled
An ordinance appropriating funds for current expenses and expenditures of Mayfield Village, Ohio for the period from January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020.
Ordinance number 2020-26 will also move to a third reading for December's meeting. Second reading of ordinance number 2020-27 entitled,
An ordinance appropriating funds for current expenses and expenditures of Mayfield Village, Ohio for the period from January 1st, 2021 and ending March 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
ordinance number 2020-27 will move to a third reading for December's meeting. Next is resolution number 2020-50 entitled,
A resolution requesting the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer to adjust the amended official certificate of estimated resources for 2020.
Resolution 2020-50 will be considered at the December meeting along with ordinance 2020-26 and 2020-27. Moving on to new business. We have a motion to approve the recommendation of the Mayfield Community Improvement Corporation to authorize payment for additional Mayfield Village business applicants for the Small Business Relief Fund grants in the amount of $2,500 per applicant. As Mr. Marquardt mentioned earlier, it's not to exceed $25,000.
Motion to approve.
Second. Tony, this motion, do we need to put in the language that the not to exceed $25,000? You're on mute.
That's consistent with what we were talking about. The prior was 50,000 though, was it not?
Correct. Yeah, I just don't know if we need to reflect in the motion that it's not to exceed $25,000.
I think it would be prudent to include that in the motion so that if we want to come back.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, then we'll make a motion to suspend as written.
Suspend.
Second.
Now we have a motion to approve the recommendation of the Mayfield Community Improvement Corporation to authorize payment to additional Mayfield Village business applicants for the Small Business Relief Fund grants in the amount of $2,500 per applicant, not to exceed $25,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Benson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Motion carries. Motion to acknowledge receipt of financial reports for October 2020 and to approve of same as submitted.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Benson, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Motion carries. Motion to authorize an expenditure in the amount not to exceed $6,402.16 to Lewis Landscape for the renovations of Parkview softball fields grass track.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Betsy, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic, Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
I'm assuming you asked mine as well.
Yeah, Mr. Schott.
All right, there was some background noise.
Yeah.
Yes. Motion carries. Sorry about that. First reading of ordinance number 2020-29 entitled,
An emergency ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Mayfield Village codified ordinances.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to know if we could get a copy of the amended traffic codes and the general offense codes, what the amendments are.
I can get those for you. Actually, the reason why this is on the agenda is the codifier now, which is American Publishing or Walter Drain, they're going to start doing the updating of the codifieds quarterly as opposed to annually. So whenever legislation is passed, I will send it right to them and they will have the updates done quarterly. But Mr. Myers, I can get a copy of the updated traffic codes to you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Betzler, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Betzler, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Ordinance number 2020-29 passes. First reading of ordinance number 2020-31 entitled,
An emergency ordinance submitting an amendment to Article 4, Section 1 of the Charter of Mayfield Village to provide term limits to the office of mayor, to the electors of Mayfield Village, to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections.
first reading of ordinance number 2020-32 entitled,
An emergency ordinance submitting an amendment to Article 3, Section 1 of the Charter of Mayfield Village to provide term limits to members of council, to the electors of Mayfield Village, to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections.
both of these will be moved to second reading in December. Resolution number,
Council President, I think they're on as emergencies.
sorry, okay. Okay,
Can I go back and motion to suspend ordinance 2020-31?
yes. We get a motion to suspend first reading of ordinance number 2020-31.
Second.
And we have a motion to pass first reading of ordinance number 2020-31.
I think we got to vote on that though first, right?
That's the vote first.
To suspend.
Yes, for discussion.
Discussion. And Mrs. Betzler, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Motion pass.
Second.
Second.
Second. Go ahead.
Mrs. Betzler, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Motion to suspend ordinance number 2020-32.
Second.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
Mrs. Betzler, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Schott.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
yes,
Mrs. Mills,
yes,
Mr. Murphy,
yes,
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Ordinance passes. Moving along to resolution number 2020-48 entitled,
An emergency resolution authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an amendment to Appendix A and Appendix B to the Billing Services Agreement with Life Force Management, Inc., January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2024.
motion pass,
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, just a reminder to council that this legislation does two things. That it increases the rate we charge depending upon the type of ambulance run it is to be more reflective of what the current rates are being accepted by the insurance carriers. And that it also allows Life Force to bill the insurance carriers of our residents and collect whatever the insurance companies pay with no further contact with our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Any other comments? Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
yes,
Mrs. Mills,
yes,
Mr. Murphy,
yes,
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Resolution passes. Resolution number 2020-49 entitled,
An emergency resolution in support of Senate Bill 365 and to urge Governor DeWine and State Legislature of Ohio to extend the deadline for operating public meetings electronically.
motion pass,
Second.
discussion? Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
yes,
Mrs. Mills,
yes,
Mr. Murphy,
yes,
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Resolution passes. Resolution number 2020-52 entitled,
An emergency resolution designating certain financial institutions as depositories for interim funds of Mayfield Village, Ohio, for the 5-year period commencing with January 1st, 2021, and authorizing said depository agreements with said institutions.
motion pass,
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, this is a requirement of the Ohio Revised Code. Every 5 years, the council designates what institutions the finance director can place the village's funds in from an operating as well as an investing standpoint. Our current agreements with those institutions expires at the end of 2020. So this is just renewing those agreements for an additional 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Any other comments? Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
yes,
Mrs. Mills,
yes,
Mr. Murphy,
yes,
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Resolution passes. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to enter into an executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G2 to consider the potential sale or purchase of real estate.
so moved,
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Betza, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Jurassic,
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
yes,
Mrs. Mills,
yes,
Mr. Murphy,
yes,
Mr. Williams,
yes,
Mr. Scheck.
Yes. Motion passes. Council is adjourning for executive session at 7:50 p.m. The live feed will be disabled until council reconvenes. When council is ready to return, a new link will be posted to the village's website for the public to view the remainder of the meeting. A motion to reconvene from executive session will be made, and we'll be voting on one additional item and then adjourn. Council would like to invite Mayor Bodnar, Mrs. Wogelmuth, Mr. Coyne, Mr. Nguyen, Mr. Marquardt, and Mrs. Betza, and the